Hey, Damon, happy Monday. Good morning to you, my friend. It's afternoon here, but good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kurt. Did you have a good weekend?
Oh my God, Damon! If it was any better, you would have had to call the police. It was just so much fun. You know how crazy. I'm over 50. You know how crazy it gets. So anyway, hey,
Yeah.
we have an amazing, incredible program today. God, dude, you look great, Damon. You know that I don't know if I can be on the show with you anymore. You look better like every. All right. Anyway, that's another. We'll talk about that later. But anyway. Man, am I excited with our guest today, man. This is like long overdue. And this is, have we had a married couple? I don't think we've had a married couple on
I
the show.
don't think we have. This is going to be fun.
I think this is our first official married couple on the show. We have Tim and Amber Wilborne. Tim and Amber, happy Monday. How are you?
Doing great.
All right. I'm not gonna be able to keep a straight face for any of this.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't think we will be either. This is gonna be good.
This is going to be great. Hey, so guys, you're out there. Drop us a note. Let us know you're there. Big hello. You got to drop a note with Tim and Amber. First off, you need to connect with them on LinkedIn if you're not already, because you are going to just adore and love what they do on a weekly basis, promoting their business. TW Controls. We're going to dig deep into this now. Damon, I was debating whether I should do this or not today, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Do you mind? Are you cool with that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. Tim, Amber, I have a question. I have two different questions for you that I'd like to open up with. Okay. But they're going to be two completely different questions. Right. Are you sitting down for this? Are you ready? Amber, I'll start with you. Now, Tim, I'm going to hit you with a completely different question. Amber, I'm going to come at you first. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. Amber, when you were a little girl growing up, did you grow up in Virginia by any chance?
I did.
Okay.
Actually, Tim and I grew up together.
Man, I'll tell you, my mother lived for, I don't know, like 20, 30 years in Lexington, Virginia, right up the road. You guys live is just absolute paradise where you live. I love that whole central Virginia area. So God bless you living in Roanoke. As a little girl growing up in Virginia, Amber, who was your hero? Who was your hero as a little girl growing up in the great state of Virginia?
I would have to say probably my Papa Miller, my grandfather.
Oh, what a Papa Miller. Is that what you said?
Papa Miller. Yeah. He was, so he was a traveling welder. And when he was trying to support, and this was on my mother's side, when he was trying to support all of the family, anytime there was work, he would travel to it. And so usually when I'm with other family members and we're traveling through Virginia, there's this one huge tower off of this old manufacturing building. And at that time, you didn't have safety harnesses and all the safety gear. He climbed up there and welded everything. So I always look at that tower and think of him.
Wow. Man, talk about steel courage on Grandpa there, right?
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Man, all right. All right. Thank you. So we're going to give a shout out to the program there. Tim, are you ready? I have a different question for you. All right. I have a different question for you. Damon, I don't have a different question for Tim. Tim, who was your hero as a little guy growing up?
Who was my hero? I mean, it was probably my parents, honestly. I probably don't go that far. I mean, especially as far as we're talking about automation, really following my dad along. I always say he was a mechanical genius, not great on the control side. That's why I kind of balanced them out and I got into controls. I wasn't very good at the mechanical part, but yeah, probably him.
All right. Well, perfect. What mom and dad's name? Let's hear
it. Dennis and Shirley.
Dennis and Shirley. All right. So we're giving a little shout out to Amber's grandfather, Dennis and Shirley. So just a little dedication. I know you got the kids there today. So just hopefully when they get asked this question, hopefully they have the same answer. Right, Tim? I hope.
Yeah. So.
All right. So let's dig in. So, okay. We've got heroes. You're kind of growing up in Virginia. You guys grew up together. You guys get married, you start a business. Tim, what was your career? What was going on pre-entrepreneurial journey before you started this just powerhouse business, TW Controls? What were you doing with your career?
So I grew up in a machine shop, and I always say I wasn't a great machinist. That's how I got into controls. But really, people were starting to want turnkey equipment. And, before then, really, you get your machine mechanically built, and then you take it to an electrical company and get it wired, and then you take it to a control company and they would program it. And when it didn't work, everybody pointed fingers. The manufacturers were starting to say, hey, I just want to buy a piece of equipment and it work. And that's it. So we didn't have anybody to do controls. And so I would go in my first job, which actually was very complicated. I went in at nights. That way they wouldn't know I didn't know how to program. And I went in there with the Allen Bradley programming reference manual, and I read that thing, and I managed to program this machine. And that was kind of my start into it. And it kind of clicked, and that's one of those things I say, that I worked really hard trying to be a machinist. This wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And so this one really clicked, and I felt like I could complement my dad's shop. Later, I went to work for a manufacturer, and I loved it. I was a corporate man through and through, and I mean, I would have stayed there the rest of my life. And then they went through a buyout, and I always say there are winners and losers in buyouts, and I was one of the losers. And about at the same time, I fell in love. And man, you want to talk about a buyout and falling in love, just flipping your whole plan upside down.
And now, which was which? Where was the buyout? Where was the falling in love? Let's hear that.
Literally, they were within a month of each other.
Mhm.
Oh my!
So yeah, I mean, I had the perfect job when I got married, and really, if you can call it a honeymoon, or that first few weeks was over, and I was in turmoil at my job.
Isn't that crazy? Wow. So Amber, what was going
Lasted
through
for
your
like
mind?
almost a year when all that started happening.
Okay,
How about
so
yours, Amber?
So let's put a pause. So we're in 2005. Let's put a little pause right there. So Amber, I'm going to go back before. Let's go pre-Tim, if you can remember those days. So let's go pre-Tim. What was going on?
You remember them. They were adventurous.
What was going on in your life, your career, pre-Tim, and then we'll start the journey back up there.
So my history, or my work history, was I did banking right out of high school, worked my way through college to be a paralegal, which after I graduated with that, I was like, nope, don't want to do it. And ironically, Tim and his dad were my construction loan customers at the bank. So I got to see Tim quite often. But I wanted to switch into something else. I had a girlfriend that was like, you really ought to come into marketing. You have the skill for it. And I really did. I loved it. I loved every aspect of marketing and the people I worked with. And it took me to Charlotte, North Carolina for about 3 or 4 years, and I loved it. And family stuff happened. I had to move home, and then was out and about and ran into this one.
So it was like, hey, why does Tim keep going to the bank every day? Like, we can't understand why. Like when he wants to make the deposits and like he's cashing checks. Like what he's.
Oh yeah, he was.
Hey, yeah, Tim's like, hey, I have a roll of dimes. I got to go to the bank real quick. I'll be back, guys. Right?
Yeah, I'll be back in a while.
But it was nice because I got to see his family a lot, and so it was. I don't say it was easy when we started dating, but I mean, it just kind of fit. It was just. Yep. It was not stressful at all. But yeah, so I did marketing. And then after we got married, I had a switch over in management, and it wasn't great. And I was also pregnant with our son.
No, let's clarify there. It was not a shotgun wedding.
No. We
did get married, and then there was about 6 months before she was pregnant.
Well, Tim.
He's right.
Yeah. Tim, thank you.
So,
and I know I know your son Michael is sitting right next to you, right? Is Michael turning a little red right now? Michael, how you doing, my friend?
No, he's just like, oh, I've heard this story before.
He's just rolling his eyes. Mom and dad.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
but I was. Being pregnant and change of management, and the stress was just a little bit much. And my doctor was like, your blood pressure's through the roof. And so we decided, it was like within a week, you will let go.
Are we going there?
Are we going there?
He just asked before.
That's true.
All right, Tim, So
I don't remember my life before you, Tim.
All right, let's go here. So, hey, we got Whitney's in the house. Whitney in Houston. Happy Monday.
Hey, we got Gail here.
Over the border here, Gail. She says, oh my God, such great guests. Hey, we got Kathy, right?
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? So
Kathy and her husband are another married business couple. people.
Hey, Kathy, we might have to have you and your husband on the program. I thought
Yeah.
she has a great commercial that I loved watching the other day. And so Gail saying, hey, I love these stories. All right. So Amber, we're all right. So this is really juicy, Damon. I told you.
Yeah,
this
it is.
Really good one, right? All right, Tim. So who wants to take the lead here? We're 2005, 2006, downsize. And Tim, I would say you said there's winners and losers. I think in the story, it sounds like you might have been a big winner in this story, right?
Well, it took about 5 years, but building a business. It is no, we definitely looked like losers coming out of this thing even after that. But no, when there's an acquisition, everybody's kind of jockeying position for position. And really, I found out that wasn't me. I'm not one of those that can really get in the ring and really push my way through. That just wasn't it. So really, I got pushed around quite a bit, and we've decided, I can do this on my own. I know how to do this stuff. Now, when I say I knew how to do this stuff, it meant I knew how to build control panels. I knew how to program PLCs. I never said in that sentence that I knew how to actually start a business, sell a job, any of that stuff. I knew how to do none of that. But so I quit my job, and I'll never forget. Actually, I've never told this way about this story. Look at there. But Amber sends me a text, and I knew her job was getting kind of a similar situation. She's like, "Can I quit too?" And I never had such a pause in my mind of, man, if she quits, we are going to be in trouble. But then I'm like, who am I to tell her she can't quit? Because I just quit my job.
Right.
So literally, she quit her job.
I did.
Over there.
Well, I quit my job, and then I was 8 months pregnant with our son Michael, our oldest. So we actually it's a cute story. So we enjoyed that time together. It was stressful. We were living a good life of being.
We were living on love at that point. We didn't have
Living on love.
Love will pay the bills,
family.
right?
Yeah, thank God for family. That's all I can say. But I went when I was in labor with Michael. Tim gets his first real call for the first real job, and so he had to take it while I was in active labor.
Yeah, no, let's roll that back slightly. Now she goes into labor, and I'm out in the hallway negotiating with insurance to actually cover the delivery. I'm sitting there asking the doctor, okay, now how much is that epidural going to cost? No, I'm just like, and all right, now let's go ahead and say it. We were not prepared. If you hadn't figured it out yet, we were not prepared to have a kid or run a business.
Nope.
But by the end of that day, we would have less than $100 in our account is where we were really going here. But we did. We landed our first customer within 30 minutes of Michael being born.
Oh, wow.
Michael, you brought him good luck, my friend.
Yeah, Michael.
Good job, always.
Now he's sitting here laughing at us.
Yeah.
So,
always brought us good luck.
All right, so let's do a quick recap here. I don't know, people. If you,
you got to go back to this.
Let's
awesome,
grab
guys.
the level of the scope of what's happening here, right? Okay, so Tim, you lose your job, quit your, whatever, right? You leave this job, and you're a corporate guy. You're going to stay there. You're going to ride that to retirement, right? As a young man, you loved what you did. Okay. Amber, you're kind of like, I'm not really digging this, whatever. But your husband comes home and says, hey, I don't have a job. And oh, by the way, we're expecting. Now what do we do? So then, Amber, you decide to leave your job. Tim, you're in the hallway while your wife is delivering, negotiating your first like who could make this up, right?
You can make this up. I mean, somebody should write a book about it.
You guys should write a book. So, all right,
you should write a book.
So let's dig in. So, you start your business, $100 in a checking account. Thank God for family. Like, I'm sure you're sparing 1,000 other details, but like this honeymoon is like, I mean, if you make it through this, you're making it through anything, right? Amber, like, what was going through your mind? You come home with Michael, you've got this newborn, and you're trying to get this business off the ground. Like, can you put yourself back? What was going through your mind at that time?
Well, getting a lot of doors slammed in my face because I did. I mean, I didn't know how to sell, but I knew how to show up, and getting a lot of no's. But one thing I will say about that first 3 months, because really that first 3 months was pretty dead. That was a really intimate time between the three of us. But to just kind of, I mean, that's why I'm so for paternity leave now. Every father and every mother should get a good amount of time off. As you did, we just hung out. We were just hanging out because we couldn't go do anything. We didn't have any money.
Right.
Yeah.
If we could afford formula, and I mean, like we weren't stopping at the convenience store grabbing a Coke on the way home, bro.
Right.
It was like, there's no money in one, there's no gas in one car. I got to take the other car to go see this customer to see if I can sell a job.
Yeah.
To get gas type of situation. But
right.
It was a really sweet time looking back on it. And I didn't get that with my daughter. I mean, it was a whole different deal then.
You traveled. Right. So when Wendell was born, which was 18 months later, that's when things started kicking off for us. And that's when you couldn't say no. Like if you were, even if you didn't have the time, you made the time because we were still, just kicking off the business. We still had bills to pay and we needed to keep the roof over our head, two very tiny humans alive. And so he was very much at that time on the road quite a bit. So it was really just me and the kids for a while. And I did very little for the business at that time because I don't know how mothers do it now. Like, I don't know how they actually leave in the morning, leave their child in the morning and go work a job. I mean, I had mom brain for 10 years.
Well, but speaking of being on the road, I mean, just to keep the pace at the pace that it was. Yeah. So Michael turns 3 months old and I finally, we're starting to get some traction. So I'm not on the road. I'm in the air doing my first job in El Salvador. So 3 months later, we're an international company working too.
Yeah. Oh my.
I not make this stuff up.
We got a couple of comments here. So Kathy says, "Man, this sounds so familiar." Hey, Noah's here today. Noah, happy Monday, dude. Noah, I think you're traveling from someone who got married in 2016, started a biz with my wife in 17, had our first kid in September of 17. This is very cathartic. And hey, we've got Lauren. Hey, my daughter's name's Lauren. Kathy Ryan, this reminds me so much of you and Dad when I was a kid. So, all right, so this is totally hitting home with their family. Okay, so man, I mean, Damon, we had a guest that you guys are going to love this. We had a guest on the Damon and I were up in Alaska working with manufacturers, and we had a guest on the program. His definition of entrepreneurship is this: he's a war hero, Army veteran, was injured in Iraq. He says entrepreneurship is a knife fight in a ditch. Entrepreneurship is a knife fight in a ditch. And man, I know that sounds a little rough, but the way you guys are describing, I mean, this is bare knuckle survival of the fittest, right? Tim? I mean, what I mean, did you picture this is what business ownership is like?
No. I mean, and really there was major regrets because we're sitting here, we are as broke can get.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing from my former employees that they decided to just give everybody a $2,500 bonus for sticking it out. And I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I mean, I took a huge pay cut starting my own because really, you're working for $1 a day when you're starting off. Never mind what you're making an hour. And then I'm hearing they're getting these bonuses and profit sharing's good this year. And I'm just like, I mean, we are, and and then you get those highs, all of a sudden it's like, hey, things are looking good. Well, right behind that, there's a crash because I didn't know how to keep cash flow going. I didn't know how to think about that. You need to look at the next job while you're doing that one. So I would be focused on this one job, making sure it's the best it could be. And we get to the end of it, I'd be like, oh my God, we have nothing to do. It just never occurred to me that, there's so many things that I knew how to do automation. Yeah, I did not know any of that.
Well, and from a marketing perspective, I loved starting new accounts or starting from the ground, working its way to the ending of the project. But at the same time, like Tim said, in my line of work, I always had jobs behind me. So I knew I needed to finish the next one and the next one. So this was odd for me too. It's like we would get done with one. We're like, what do we do?
Yeah.
All right. So, if guys, if you're just joining us, I want to introduce you. Welcome, Tim and Amber. They own TW Controls. We're digging deep into an entrepreneurial journey. If you just joined us, you have to catch a replay. Throw that rewind button and catch what's going on here. So, all right, guys, 2006, 7, 8. The economy's not in anybody's favor at this point in time. But Tim, did you okay? So a lot of hiccups. Gee, I'm starting to do good. But when was there a point where you're like, okay, I think I've got some momentum here? Like, were there a lot of days, like, would you look at Amber, or Amber, would you look at Tim and say, like, hey, should we go get jobs? Or like, what was that till you got to the point where, like, I think we're over the top?
Well, and really, you're right. 2008 wasn't great for anybody, and that was definitely horrible for us at that point. Yeah, that would really ruin the buzz on this podcast. We really went that hard on that way right now. But let's just say that was a horrible time.
We'll pretend it didn't happen, right?
Yeah. We would love to pretend it didn't happen, but I learned a lot in that.
Exactly.
I learned a lot about you can overextend yourself. You can overextend what you say you can do. And I learned a lot about, you've got to find customers and vendors that really have the values, that are really looking out for you, not just be looking for money. Yeah. And about that time, I started realizing, hey, okay, this isn't working. Us hitting this project crashing. And I remembered something a former boss had told me. He came in one day. This was the first acquisition I went through. It was an awesome acquisition, not the second one. But he came in and he looked, and that we had the same issue. And he told me, he said, we're going to start selling air cylinders. And I'm like, why would we sell air cylinders? We do projects. He said, well, because you need something to pay your daily bills, and then you can use the projects to really pile on the profit. And so I started thinking along those lines, and really we started trying to sell everything. We tried to sell PLC cables. That went okay. We tried to sell safety glasses. That didn't go good. We sold batteries. We sold gloves. We sold, and just trying to get some money just to pay for the gas, pay for the groceries. Yeah. And that kind of started us down the line of where we are today, because we sold cables, and then we needed, hey, how do you use this cable? And, so next thing we're making instruction videos. Right. And then we realized, okay, hey, we could make some small products. And so we made our analog simulator. And then next thing, we got to make a video on how to use the analog simulator. And really, with the cables, especially initially, it was you sell a cable, so you got one view. But all of a sudden, the analog simulator, we sell an analog simulator, and we got like 100 views. We're like, well, where are these other guys coming from? I mean, people ask, how did we get into YouTube? It was totally an accident.
Yeah, it was accidental.
Yeah. So all of a sudden people are watching this stuff for, they're like, hey, I need to do the same 2-wire thing, but I'm not using your device. And, so I was kind of like, well, first, why aren't you using our device? But okay, let me help you out. And that kind of got the ball rolling, starting, I guess, our YouTube and training.
Wow. Perfect. All right. So let's go here. If I'm not jumping too far ahead, because we've got two things that we're going to talk about. We're talking about entrepreneurship and marriage, but I want to dig into like TW Controls and like how you kind of like niche down, created your business model. Share with folks. I'm going to fast forward to happy days. It's happy days right now. What is TW Controls? How do you make the world a better place? Let's describe your business, everybody who's joining us today.
In a nutshell, we help you become a better technician. So we focus just on the people that keep manufacturing running. Nice. There's a lot of people that do how to do PLC programming, how to build equipment, but it's just how do you keep what you have going? And really, it kind of spurred out of we were selling cables, and then people started asking, well, I've been using this trainer here and it doesn't work that good. I mean, what would you recommend? And honestly, the trainers that we're using today, I really sat there, took a piece of aluminum and kind of drew it out and hand marked it and drilled it. And that's almost the trainer we're using today. But I really sat there and said, what would I want to pull off the shelf and do a test and figure out how to use? So we kind of started selling those, and then we started making our lesson series. And then people started asking us, hey, can we just come hang out with you? And we're like, no, you can't come hang out with us. Because really up until we built the training center, we worked out of our house, a little building there.
Yep.
And
so we started at our kitchen table.
Yeah.
And then that went to a another building, and then we outgrew that building, went to another building on our property, outgrew that, built onto that, built onto that. We're out of room pretty much. And so when COVID hit, that was another thing that when COVID hit, we were very blessed. We had supplies. So we knew at that time, like after COVID, supply and demand was a little iffy. And this one here, I don't know if he got a gut feeling or what, but decided that we needed to have supplies on hand. And as we were building these trainers, I have always seen Tillman like a mentorship or an instructional, type of whatever, because he's very good with mentoring others, especially through their small business startings, and especially when we used to get those 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls and their machines were down, and he'd help walk them through it. So I knew he was meant, excuse me, I knew he was meant to be an instructor of some sort. I mean, he's already a mentor. So we took a leap of faith again and found a place, and now we have our training center. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
cool.
backing up to COVID, that was, we talk about marketing and how to do marketing. And I always say, there are companies that hit the bullseye. We've never hit the bullseye with marketing. We're aiming for that next outer ring. We're pretty happy if we can get it. But
I
COVID
love
shifted
that.
the entire industry and put us right in the bullseye. And that was a blessing, because really it seemed temporary at first. We all thought we were going to be off for a few weeks.
Right.
And so companies started calling. They're like, hey, we've been wanting to do this upgrade on this control panel. Can you go ahead and build this out for us? Yeah. And I swear, I think for a while we were the only control panel shop that might have been in operation, because that's all we did was build control panels from the time the world shut down until August.
mm-hmm.
And then all of a
Wow.
sudden the schools started calling. They're like, hey, man, we're not going to be able to open school back up. We need trainers. And it's like, oh my gosh. And Amber and I literally woke up in the morning. We'd lay trainers out. We'd build trainers. We'd package trainers.
Like 20
We'd
or
box
25 a
them.
day.
We would get them shipped. We could wake up in the morning. It was the exact same thing.
More orders.
And it was like, oh my gosh, this is getting insane. But then schools did. That's where all of a sudden they're like, all right, we need to understand how we can actually train these guys now. And hey, when can we come see you? And it's like, oh man, we are working out of this little small building. We're not pulling this off.
Yep.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
So
And that's
anybody
when
I
you
know.
So that's when you moved into the bigger building, and now you got it so people can come in there.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Such a great story.
Anybody jumping off for your next call, so I have Tim's website in the chat box. We have his YouTube channel. So you absolutely want to check that out. Learn all about Tim and Amber, about their training center, all the superpowers that they have. Now, Amber, I'm going to go here for a second. When you, on your LinkedIn profile, you have Dreamer. Did I see that correct? Tim, I think maybe you have Industrial Sorcerer. Do I have that correct? Industrial Sorcerer and the Dreamer. How do you, so we're hearing the combination, the pure marriage of the Industrial Sorcerer combined with the Dreamer. Let's go here. Like, how did this happen? How did, like, Amber, like, through this whole process, was this going to be temporary? Like, I'll help you for a while, and then, like, I'm going to go find another job, or like, as a Dreamer, was this where, like, can we go there for a minute? I am going there.
We can't go there. So I think would I have ever thought we would be where we are now? No. Yeah. Would I have ever thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now? Because I didn't have the skills. But I will tell you that Tim will come to me and say, I have an idea.
And immediately her guard goes up. She's like in full bulletproof armor at that moment that I say that.
Yeah.
But I am a dreamer when it comes to that, because, he has, mentioned a couple times about a certain thing here or a certain thing there. And I'm like, I bet that could happen. When it came to the training center, though, I did not hesitate one bit on that, did I?
Well, actually, you're the one that pushed probably more than that. Let's put a ratio to this. I fail probably at least 20 times for every one good idea I have. Now, I'm not scared to fail, though.
That's good average.
Yeah.
It's better than
That's
mine,
good.
man.
That's good. You have to be ready to go.
But yeah, I'm a big dreamer. So I think that's what helps balance Tim and I out because, I mean, when we started dating, we were exactly what we weren't looking for. Like, we were total opposite.
Well, and it used to upset her. She's looking for
wait.
that romantic response, and she's like, "Honey, why did you fall in love with me?" And I always used to tell her, "Because you're everything I wasn't looking for."
That may
Same.
be the best line on the show, Damon, of all time. You were exactly what I wasn't looking for. Is that what you just said?
Oh,
I mean, it's paid off though, because I mean, look at us now.
and we do. I mean, it's a severe
God.
balance. I mean,
It
we are not two peas in a pod. We are.
And we're not always this giggly and happy.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
welcome to my world too.
But she's also not scared to be like, "No, this is
Yeah.
the stupidest idea you have had in a long time." She's not afraid to say that. It's not, "Oh, whatever you think is honey, that's good."
Yeah, I'm pretty blunt.
So all right, let's go here. Let's throw on our marketing hat.
Yeah,
So Amber, you're the big marketer. Tim, you and I connected years ago through our mutual friend Chris Lukey, big networker. I've loved and admire your work since the day we've met. Just love what you're doing. Let's dig into marketing a little bit. So guys, if you haven't, you're new to Tim and Amber, you absolutely have to check out their YouTube channel. If you're a manufacturer, you're a marketer, and you're like thinking, I'd like to get a YouTube channel going. These guys have over 60,000 followers, 60,000 subscribers, over 700 videos. Who's going to take credit? I know, Tim, you said it was kind of an accidental thing. Talk to us about the success, and you don't need to be modest.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the success on YouTube. Like, when did it really get cranking? And you're like, man, I think this YouTube thing's working.
Well, and that is interesting because, I do say that I'm the accidental marketer, accidental YouTuber. Really, people ask us, how do you get to the first 1,000 subscribers? Everybody thinks that's something magical. If you're watching this, it's not magical. It is a steady, long game. But we had 5,000 subscribers before I ever even realized
that we had
that subscribers mattered. I mean, really, our intent, I was still working out in the field. And so we were building devices, we were selling devices, we had to support these devices. So I could stand there by a loud machine and try to explain to them the difference between an 4 to 20 milliamp 2-wire and 4-wire circuit, or I could have a video to do it. And so really it was where I could post a video and be like, hey, go check out this video and answer those questions. And then all of a sudden kind of the storm happened there behind it. But then I started getting comments. Hey, how do you do this? How do you do this? And did okay at answering questions. And then I guess about that point, I made that dancing lady video. So I had no idea how to edit a video. If you look at my early ones, really it is hit the record button, talk it out, hit the stop button. Half time you can see my finger moving up to it. I mean, I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And so I decided to try to figure out how to cut clips in and paste stuff on. And so a guy asked me, hey, can you make a video on control panels that isn't so boring? And so literally it was my attempt at making this video. I made it for one person. It was a joke between the two of us. And here's why I always say, don't look at even now, I'll tell you, don't look at the metrics early on in your videos. It's 3 months in, this video had 17 views and it just ticked over 400,000 views.
Oh my. It just went over 400,000 views.
Yeah.
Is that
But
some people would be like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. We just sit there and laugh for like, oh my God.
But it kind of defined the way I did things because I'm severely camera shy. Like I may go home and take a nap after this is done. I mean, it just sucks the life out of me to do any of this. And so, before I would have been like, well, okay, you need to hook a wire here and do this. But it kind of is like, okay, let me just roll through this and throw a little really horrible, terrible humor in it. To try to make people realize I'm a human because, at the time, especially everything was very stiff and very engineering in our industry. There's some good people out there now doing a lot better than I am, but yeah, so it kind of defined how I started doing video. And so I try to make it just like I'm sitting here talking to you, how you're going to do this particular thing, as opposed to being in front of everybody trying to talk down to them.
Well, several points that I want to unpack there. First off, just thank you guys for like this. I had such high expectations for this interview, this conversation.
That was
You
awesome.
guys are absolutely crushing it. But Tim, I love your modesty, love your humility, your self-deprecating. But you know, a couple of things that you said that I think were very profound for folks out there. Number one, the long game, right? Like we had 17 views, but you just stuck with it. You know, you're like, man, I might have to go take a nap after this, but you know, you're putting it out there and you're dedicating yourself to helping the customer. You know, Damon, we use that line, how to out teach the competition. And I feel like you guys have defined that. So instead of like, hey, sell, you know, like, look at me. Like you, Tim, you're just out there just relentlessly, you know, with just great humility of like, just trying to teach people, like your tagline is helping you to be a better technician.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's really pretty simple, right? It's not complicated, right? How to be a better technician.
Back of our t-shirt.
Was that a QR code, Amber? Was that?
It was a QR code.
All right, guys. So, hey, you might have to go back and pause and hit that QR code. So, all right, marketing, when you started getting a little momentum with YouTube, did you at one point in time, you're like, this is our go-to, I need to be doing this consistent. I mean, like after 700 videos, at some point in time, you're like, hey, I think this is working.
No, I got off path like you do with everything. Cause all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is working. Let me put out a video. And then immediately I would watch it. Oh man, it doesn't have any views yet. It doesn't have enough views. Oh man. And, you know, and I got caught up in all that for a very short time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 6 months.
Yeah.
And, but then I was like, why am I making these videos? So I was steering videos towards views. That's why I tell everybody, you know, and even now you'll rarely see me get excited about a view count, but I tell everybody, don't worry about views. Worry about, you know, are you actually engaging with someone?
Yep.
And you know, are people actually watching the video? Actually, I put out a short series on our second channel, you know, and one of the big things we do look for is how long are people watching the video? Great that they'll click on it, they'll watch 15 seconds and hit the back button.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually engagement?
Yeah.
You know, are they watching to the end of the video? You know, where are they going after that video? Are you helping them? You know, or do they feel like you're sitting there talking to them personally?
Right.
You know, and that's, so
you want that retention because you know you're engaging, you're having that because he's so, you know, such a normal guy, you know, you could see that they're watching it all the way through because it's like he is individually talking to a person.
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, I got back on track. And that's where I think, honestly, we haven't grown nearly as much, but I feel like we've had a lot more connection with, you know, people.
Right.
Yes.
Amber, that's another time Amber had to talk me down. There was another channel and I could have passed them. And I really realized that I laid out, you know, and I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. And this is how we're going to pass this particular one. And she looked at me and she's like, well, what do you want to do that for?
Yeah.
And I was like, just because I want to be better than them, you know, but then I realized, okay, better does not mean more subscribers, more views. Right. It is, you know, how many people are you impacting?
Yes.
You know, how many, you know, and got talking the niche and down. That's what I ended up doing is instead of trying to get a bigger net, you know, I tried to narrow down to where, okay, no, really, we're only going to help people that are trying to keep equipment going. We're not going to worry, you know, it's great that you can get benefit from us if you are, you know, engineering a new system, but that's not where we're going to sit at.
And I would much rather see individuals like on a trade show floor or whenever we travel and they come up to us and talk to us and say just a simple thank you for a video that was made like 10 years ago. And they're saying, you know, thank you, that helped me. I was in a bind. I would much rather have that than look at the numbers on YouTube or look at how many people are following me or I'm connected to, because I like that human element of seeing their faces. And then we can have a conversation even furthering what they need.
Well, I bet it is a cool moment when you go and I'm trying to learn about equipment when I'm at a trade show. So I go up to the expert. I'm like, hey, trying to understand how this works, you know, when they explain it. And usually they'll go ahead and do the typical explanation as I'm walking off. They'll be like, hey, by the way, thanks for your videos. I couldn't have got through college without them. And it's like, man, I mean, that's when you know you've actually had an impact. It's like the
no doubt.
expert that you're learning from. He's the one you taught him, you got him to where he is, and that's when it's cool.
You kind of walk away instead of you're kind of like, that's like our child.
Yeah.
Our little kids are growing up, man.
It's
like
impact.
when you go back to 2005, Tim, and you said like, boy, there's losers and winners. I mean, just, you know, and Amber, there's so much to unpack right there. Like, Amber, kudos to you for being the voice of reason. Don't chase the competition. Just focus on delivering value, you know, and trust me, I know it's very hard to do, right? And how do you separate that? But when you can come into it rationally, like you did, Amber, you're like, hey, heck with those guys that whatever they're doing, this is our jam. This is why people resonate with us. And then be on a trade floor and to have people patting you on the back like that. Boy, just, you know, what a great journey it's been. 18 years? Am I doing the math right? 17 years of entrepreneurship?
18 years. Or no, 17 years. No, 18 years married, 17 years in business.
There
we go.
All right. So let's dig into time. Time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're, and I know the kids are so proud of you. I know they have their kids there right by their side there somewhere, right? Michael's within earshot, right? Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's dig in. I have a couple married questions for you guys. Okay, you ready?
Right. This is gonna be great.
Okay. During stressful times, and I don't know, Tim, is entrepreneurship ever stressful? I don't, dude. You got
never at all.
You got that amazing head of hair. Look at him, Damon. Like, you know, look at like entrepreneurship didn't go well for me, but look at how well it did for you, Tim. But Tim, when entrepreneurship is just a little bit stressful and you're trying to figure out, man, I got to do my own accounting. Nobody told me about that, or I've got to figure out cash flow. I got to figure out that. How do you guys keep it? How do you prevent it from impacting your marriage? How do you keep those stressful entrepreneur business
really poorly when we were early? Is that pretty much what we would say?
Yes.
Well, and I tell people, and you know, I will give some really sound advice and it doesn't matter if it's a husband and wife company, just anybody out there, entrepreneurial wise, is you've got to talk to your spouse about what's going on money wise. You know, you can't be like, oh, I can't, you know, I can't tell Amber about it because, you know, I'll have to hear a bunch of stuff. I don't want to stress her out. No, you have to be on the same page. If you're going in the hole, you go in the hole together. If you succeed, you succeed together. And that's the biggest thing I would say there. But early on, I mean, and this is a risky industry. Now, let's just face it, it is. And Amber did not come from this industry. You know, so for me to take a risk, especially before kids, wasn't a big deal. You know, I mean, before we got married, I probably lost everything a couple of times. You know, you didn't build right back from it.
Yeah.
But you know, when all of a sudden she's kind of more used to really having that stability, and me, you know, I'll risk it all, and she doesn't know about it. That's when tension can happen. And yeah, I definitely caused a lot of tension in our marriage that way.
Oh.
And so now, but you know, I'm not saying we take as big a risk as we used to, but we still take risks, but we talk them out together.
Yeah.
It takes us a long time to discuss it over and over and over again. But I mean, I do agree with Tim. Communication is super key, whether you're business partners or married. You've got to be able to communicate with your partner. You've got to be able to say, hey, that business decision you made yesterday didn't feel great to me, so we need to discuss it. And also in your personal lives. So,
and I've made some impulse decisions she still rides me on. I still say they were good, but I didn't discuss them with her. You better believe in they are good decisions. I will get rode for them for the next 20 years, but that's okay. I accept that now, and I realize that, hey, that's the consequence of me to making a decision without her.
Right.
Done it too.
When one question, I apologize if when you guys, when was there a turning point where you felt like this is working? Like, we can do this. Like, Tim, you mentioned earlier, like 5 years, you know, was there a particular point? Like, was there a time where you woke up and you're like, man, I think we've got this.
Yeah. I think for me, it was when we started building the trainers. Like when we started
out there.
When we started
And I got to be honest, I won't go to that one. I do know the moment, but it's a little emotional. So no, I do know the moment on that though. But yeah, you're right. There is a point where all of a sudden you can look back and be like, okay, all this was worth it. Because I'll tell you, until that moment, from day to day, sometimes you can be like, this is awesome and this stinks at the same time. But it did take probably, I'll say it was about 5 years really we were stable. Probably about 7 years I could look back and be like, this was cool. This was a great decision.
And Tim, the thought of working for somebody else, like could you leave entrepreneurship, or you just, what would that look like?
If the right opportunity came up, and I mean, and here's where I think I'm at a point I could find the right opportunity. Right. I mean, but really, money wouldn't be the big one. It's, what are their values like? How are they about family? How what all, how do, even though we're not going to have kids anymore, I really do look, I do kind of look at those things now as, what is their maternity policy like? Do they have paternity policy? Are they truly family oriented, or is they just trying to, use somebody to get a product out?
Or can you tell the difference between a manager and an employee? If you can't tell the difference, then that's the right place.
Yeah.
Because if they're in it with their employees and working side by side with them, then I think.
Right. I can admit, the thought would not, I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't cross my mind. I think, it would be really difficult for somebody to hire me because, I'm pretty opinionated. I thought I would be a good hire. But as we get older, who knows? I'm not, I don't want somebody to be like, hey, on Kurt Anderson podcast, you said you'd never work for somebody again. What's he doing over there? But I can't envision myself doing it. I think I'll always do something though.
Right.
So I don't know. I could be the grumpy old man and the electrician out at Lowe's one day, or I may be working somewhere, or I may be piddling. I would drive Amber insane though if I ever just stopped. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I dream of the day where we do stop.
You well.
We've got a couple
of the day, and then we go to the beach, and I drive her crazy.
Diane Byer is here. Diane, happy Monday, my friend. How are you? Making an impact makes the world a better place. Pure gold. If you can't tell managers from the employees, absolutely love that. Amber, any folks out there that are like husband and wife teams that are thinking about possibly going into entrepreneurship, words of wisdom, advice, what would you have to share?
I would say he's giving me the eyes.
Oh, no, I'm not giving eyes. I have one just in case.
I got a little weak all of a sudden. I would say you have to be intentional with your partner, business and marriage. You have to communicate. No matter if you're saying the same thing you said the day before, if you're repeating yourself several times, you have got to communicate. And I think always just try to have a moment where you consider what they're saying and don't put yourself first, let them be first.
I was going to say communication. So, I mean, at least we got that communication right.
That's always a working in progress.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, and and I guarantee you, every husband and wife company that's at least been out there 10 years now, it's not like it's an uphill. It sometimes, all of a sudden the communications just shuts off, and honestly, sometimes it can be because monotony.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really, it's like, all right. I get another one. Is if you are a couplepreneur, can we call it a couplepreneur? That's
couplepreneur.
There you go.
Then don't forget about date day.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
date day every week.
Like date day, I do, unless we do have some things to discuss, I do my best just to, can I just call it study? Just study on her besides work. In other words, what is she feeling? What is she dreaming about today? And just to kind of, remember that we have to, actually parents have to remember this. So remember you were married before you had kids, and you got to remember we were married before we started this business.
Right.
So yeah, that part could be difficult there because you can get in a grind and all of a sudden you realize that, oh yeah, what do you mean, Amber? You haven't got the IPEs ready yet? You need to work Saturday.
Usually he's talking me out of working on the weekends. I'm like, I have to go to work today. And he's like, why?
It's a tough boss. Now, Damon, you deal with tons of family businesses, and family can be, sometimes it's not a good combination, very stressful. Yes. Fathers, children, parents, grandparents, different generations, let alone husband and wives. What are your big takeaways from our conversation today? What's going on?
It's like you guys have worked at the communication, right? And making those decisions, because I can totally see people in your shoes, Tim, where you're out in the moment and you maybe have something, and then Amber, you in the same thing, but then not not discussing that when it comes to the flip side is where it's really fun. But no, I think it's cool hearing you guys talk about it and being open and honest about the struggles, because how many people do you see now that are showing the glamorous life of being an entrepreneur, and most people don't realize, as you said, it's 5 to 7 years of struggle. Just get ready for it, because you're gonna rethink your life, what you're really doing, and everyone else around you, your spouse, your parents, everyone else is gonna think the same thing. And I'm just so grateful for you sharing it today.
And Tim, some of the entrepreneurs that Tim has mentored over the years, he has had to put pretty much a hard stop on them, going, well, I think I'm going to give myself 3 or 4 weeks of vacation this year. And Tim's like, nope.
Well, when I talk, I am so happy that I have helped a lot of companies start now that are doing way better than I am. But I've had some, they're like, hey, I want to start a business. And their next thing is, how much time should I block off to take off? And I'm like, don't get me wrong, it's important to take time off. But if that's why you think you're starting your business, you're not even going to make it. You just, that's why I always say all the time, well, that's usually my next thing is, why are you starting this business? What makes you think you want to? And usually it's because they're not happy with their boss. And okay, I wasn't happy with my boss either. Maybe that is a good reason, but it was definitely, there's a lot of sacrifices early on.
Well,
or we just did a completely wrong one.
The two of you have great bosses right now, right? So that's all that matters, is just like, who's the boss?
They're sitting out here though. Those are the two kids.
The two kids, right? Well, hey, Diane says date day, can't be all work, and our friend Gail says communication is absolutely key. So guys, all right, first off, as we wind down, I want to give a big, huge, warm thank you. This was just such an amazing conversation and such a great topic, because there are tons of husband and wives out there that are working together, and that I've had family members where their marriage didn't make it, so I commend you guys. Kudos to you guys. You're just such an inspiration. Michael, your mom and dad are just so awesome in our book. So how's that? So I want to say this: anybody sitting out there that's been watching us we've been going for a little while, man, if you want to stand up, get a little stretch, good time to stretch. Let's give a big standing ovation for Tim and Amber for just being such an amazing couplepreneur.
So much fun today. Couplepreneurs. I like that.
As we wind down, I have one last question, but before I do, Tim, any last words of wisdom, parting thoughts, anything that you want to share about TW Controls, your journey, anything else that you want to share?
No, I can't think of anything. Can you think of anything? I wasn't really ready for that, because I was we didn't hold anything back, I don't think.
I don't think so. Amber, how about you? Anything that you want, any parting words of wisdom for spouses, wives, husbands, entrepreneurs, any last words of wisdom that you want to share?
So go ahead.
I don't have anything.
Oh, she gave me that grin like she's getting ready to say something I may not like.
I'm going to sneak in one more question, and then if you guys have any parting thoughts, words of wisdom. Again, guys, we dropped their website is in the chat box, their YouTube channel. They are funny, they are hysterical, they are informative. They do all sorts of training, anything that you need to know. These guys have covered it. And so again, and Tim, you're a big advocate for the skills trade, and thank you for being such awesome. A passionate ambassador there. We absolutely love that. So are you guys baseball fans by any chance? You guys baseball? No.
Locally, we like to go to the games, but I don't follow it anymore. I did when I was younger, but no.
Okay, so let's go here. All right, so we've got a we have a little fun baseball question. We got Damon. I'm gonna transition it to the wedding.
Oh, there you go.
When you guys got married, when you guys
you need a whole new podcast for the wedding.
when you guys got married. So all right, so it could be. I'll give you two options here. Either when you got married, or if you were getting married today, what's your marriage song? What's the marriage song? What was the marriage song then? Or if you've got a new one today, what would be what was your marriage song?
Oh my goodness, this is gonna be great.
What is it? Are you singing it?
That was good. And she is always good with it, coming up with a song there.
What was it?
What was the song?
Highway to Hell.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Highway to.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Our song.
No, I really don't know.
I'm more of a music fan than you are. I don't really. What?
Nothing. Don't listen to him.
Don't listen.
You got Michael coming in the background. Honestly, I don't know what song it would be. I'll tell you this much: I wouldn't do it any differently than we did though.
No,
we did
There you
elope. We were going for a traditional wedding, and
we eloped.
let's just leave it at we eloped, and it was awesome.
It was.
And I promised her a year later that we would renew our vows to make up for eloping. It was 9 years later, and it needed to be 9 years later because we had the two best guests that we could have had at our wedding. That was our two kids.
Yes.
And it
Nice.
was. I wouldn't do it any other way on that.
And it was
Awesome.
fun.
Well, that was
That's so good.
fantastic. So, hey, and I eloped as well. So maybe that will be our next podcast. We'll give advice for entrepreneurs that want to elope. So, hey, we've got couplepreneurs. That's a great new hashtag. And Amber, you introduced me to that one. I love that you dropped that this week. Diane says celebrate good times. So, hey, that might be a good one. Good times. That was a disco song. So look that one up. Yeah. So, all right, guys, let's go here. We're going to wind down. So first off, thank you guys. We appreciate you. You're such an inspiration. Thank you for being friends on LinkedIn and in social media. Keep spreading that good word. Michael, we want to wish you just monster success.
Yeah.
In Finland, he's doing a little transfer to Finland for his junior year? Is it his junior year of high school?
Yeah.
Junior year.
Man, so dude, cool.
We're gonna miss you. So okay, we're gonna wind down. Damon, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Tim, Amber, hang out with us for 1 second.
Thanks so much for being here today.
You guys, boy, let's go here, Damon. If you business, marriage, personal life, boy, this was just a great dose of inspiration here. Tim and Amber just really laid it on the line for us today. Just brought their whole story. Vulnerable, inspiration, all the above. Just go out and be someone's inspiration, just like Tim and Amber, and you're going to keep crushing it. So, guys, hang out with us 1 second. Thank you. God bless. We'll see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Friday. Thank you so much for having us.